Virtual Campground is a community of RVers. We gather around the campfire to share stories, information, and travel tips that help you on your next adventure. Your camp hosts, Deborah and Barry Benton, are full-time RVers in search of quaint bookstores, cozy coffee shops with great Wi-Fi, and epic photography opportunities, all to share with you. So pull up your chair and join us in the Virtual Campground. Welcome to the Virtual Campground. We're going to talk a little bit about Starlink. We've had it for a few months now. We're going to talk about, just to give you an overview of it and some of the lessons we've learned and a quick overview of what Starlink is all about. So buckle up and let's go. Because one of the things that's constant about Starlink has been change. We've seen several changes since we've got the dish, and they just went through another pricing and services change. So Elon Musk buys completely into the Jack Welch philosophy of change before you have to. So there are 6 options on their website, but only one of them really applies to us. But they're residential, business, roam, aviation, maritime, Internet of Things. So all we care about really is roam, and that's the new RV related option. So what are the basics? It's a low Earth orbit satellite, 341 miles, as opposed to normal satellites being as much as 12,000 to 21,000. So a lot of that means those satellites are much closer to the Earth, and that data is passing much quicker. They were designed flatter, so you can get more payload up into the air with each rocket. So that helps get those satellites up there quicker. Each has avoidance capability, collision avoidance. So that's going to help with all the space trash that's up there, asteroids, the Jetsons, if they run into the Jetsons. And it was designed specifically to keep an eye out for the international space stations. There are 2 of them, I believe, in orbit, and so they're specifically programmed to keep an eye on those, so that if they come near them, then they program themselves to get out of the way to make sure that they don't run into those. And then you do use krypton, not kryptonite. I was disappointed to hear that they weren't using actual kryptonite, but krypton, as it turns out, is an actual element that can be used for propulsion, and so that's what they're using. And they have now more than 1 million users, and I'll talk a little bit about the service degradation that's happened over the 6 months or so since we've been using it, and it's because so many people have adopted the technology and are using it. According to Elon, they're still losing money. Take that for what it's worth. I think he has plenty to spare at this point, but another interesting fact is they're still spending around $20 million a month for service to the Ukraine. So that's an interesting thought, just to help to support Ukraine during the war. 3,580 satellites are currently in orbit, and they have plans for 12,000 total. But they have a license to get as many as 42,000 up in the air. So that's going to be pretty incredible if they get to that point. Planned launches. So let's talk a little bit about their launches, just for the geeks in the audience. You can go to rocketlaunch.live. The URL's there if you want to pause this, and you can actually see when the rockets are going to launch. I've seen several people that have posted about going to watch the launches. They're happening so frequently that you can go out there and hang out for a couple of weeks and see a launch or 2. It'd be kind of fun. And then let's get back over to the program here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your options and some of the services. We're going to go through the options for roam, just to talk a little bit about that. Starlink RVs is now roam. So if you were looking at the service in the past, there's only one option for people that are nomadic. And that could be whether you're nomadic for a short period of time, or you're full-timers, or you're part-timers, weekenders, or whatever. It's $5.99 for the hardware, $150 a month for regional. And regional just means the continent that you are in. So pretty loose definition of region. And then $200 a month if you want to go global. It is a pay-as-you-go system, so you can pause for a month at a time, and this means that if you are a weekender, full-time, part-timer, regardless, or a full-timer, and you are going to be a couple of months out boondocking or doing whatever, and you're not going to need the service, then you can pause it and then just pick it right back up, and you won't get charged that $150 a month or $200 a month for your service. So that's a nice add-on. Now, just as an aside, if you are on an older plan like we are, you have to be really careful about doing this, because if you do pause it, there's no guarantee that if you try to resume and you're in an area that's congested and does not have availability, then you won't be able to reactivate your service until you get someplace where you can activate it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about it is designed to be on the go. Unpack, use, repack, repeat. So you set it up, use it, pack it up, move to your next spot, use it some more. This is all you get in the box. It is the satellite dish, the power supply, and the router all built into one, and then the stand and the 75-foot cord, which is kind of nice. There is another option for Roam, and that is Roam in Motion. And this is a permanently mounted dish that's on your vehicle. It's on a platform that's at an 8-degree slant that allows for water to run off. And it is, like I said, a permanent mount flat on the vehicle, enhanced GPS capabilities, so that's a nice feature. And that it also is nice that it has 35% more satellite coverage, so it's getting a wider view of the sky. Has better snow melt capabilities for those of you that want to go camp in the snow. However, it is $2,500 for the hardware, so you're paying for that upgraded technology. And then $150 a month for regional and $200 for global, just like the regular Roam. So a nice little option for those that you want to have permanently mounted to your vehicle. The downside of that is if you want to go park out in the middle of the woods under trees, your rig is not your Starlink is not going to see the satellites, so you're not going to have use for that. It's one of the nice things about having the standalone Starlink dish. You can just take it out, move it out to where there are no trees, hopefully with the 75-foot cord, or you can purchase an extension cord from Starlink to get even further out. All right, so let's talk about your service levels. The service levels are pretty controversial. There's lots of information on their website, so you just really have to take your time and read through all that. But just some of the highlights: it is a best effort service for Roam. So if you're in a congested area, you will be deprioritized, or there's a good chance you will be deprioritized for the people that are in the residential plans. You can look at the Starlink map to find out if your travel path or where you're planning on camping for a week or two or whatever is in a congested area. And that Starlink map will look something like this. As you can see, the whole eastern half of the United States is covered. The fun parts of Colorado are covered up. California and into Oregon are covered up. So just have to look at this and see if you're going to be at a congested area, and that's going to give you some indication as how useful Starlink's going to be when you are there. Data restrictions: there is a fair use policy on their website. So if you Google Starlink fair use policy, you will find that. That's pretty dry reading, but it's really important. If you are seriously considering making this investment, you'll want to read that to make sure you understand what you're getting into. And then the performance per plan. They do have on their website, if you Google performance per plan or go to this document here, it's in their legal section. So if you go to starlink.com/legal, you'll probably find it, or you can just Google performance for mobile service plans for Starlink, then you may find it. If you want to pause here and copy down this URL, you can do that. But it's going to give you what they say are the rated performance plans for their different services. And as you can see here, best effort RV is 5 to 50 and 2 to 10 for upload. So they're laying it right there on the line that you're not going to get amazing service through the Starlink sometimes. There's a potential for that. All right, so what else? All right, so the best effort speeds expected when using basic access in congested areas. So again, if you're in an area that has limited capabilities or that's congested, you may experience lower speeds. Um, there was a report in Business Insider last December that just talked about how the service is degraded. When people first started getting on Starlink, service was great. Then it started to go down. There was 110 megabits per second the last quarter of 2021, and now it's down to 50 megabits per second on average. So the Starlink kit and services are novel. I thought that was very candid of them to put that out there. They're novel, under development, and subject to change. So, kind of fun. All right, let's talk about the apps. So there is an app that comes with Starlink that allows you to operate it, control it. Let's take a look at the Starlink app. I'm going to go to that. All right, so this just shows you a little bit about what's the Starlink app is capable of. You can do speed tests within it. You can do a simple one like this one is showing, and then you can do it more advanced. So this is a great example. We're out in the middle of nowhere, Terlingua, Texas, near Big Bend. We have no cell service, and we're getting 51 megabits per second download speed and somewhere around 1920 upload speed. Now that's the basic speed test from Starlink. So if you go to their advanced test, which you can see there at the bottom of the screen, that's going to test two components of the system. That's going to test the speed from your router out to the internet. So how fast is that data moving from the satellite, from your router to the satellite and back? And then the other component you can see on the left side is going to be what's the actual speed of your devices in your home out to the router. So that'll give you a sense of, some people put this in their cargo bays underneath their rig or somewhere other than inside the rig. Then this will give you a sense of what that speed is between your power supply or your router and your devices that you're trying to use the internet. So as you can see here, we're really close to our router, so we're getting dynamite speed. So it's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. So 549 megabits per second from my iPhone to the router. All right. What else is on here? So this is the speed test app from Ookla. It's my go-to for testing speeds once we get set up. And as you can see here, it's also getting some pretty blazing fast internet speeds for download. It's going to taper back just a little bit. So 55.1 download, not too bad. And here the upload's going to taper quite a bit. So it bounced up there almost to 20, and now it's coming down. It's settling down now, and we're close to 9 and 10. So it does vary based on a lot of factors, including what visibility you have in your location and what congestion is there. So the Starlink app also gives you some, tells you what's running on the Starlink as far as what devices are attaching to it. This is pretty cool. You can see obstructions. It takes a little while to build this, sometimes overnight, and you can see, are there trees obstructing you? And then you can move the dish if you need to move it to get a more clear view of the sky. It'll show you uptime, latency, throughput, so you can get a sense of how your dish is performing. It'll show your outages for 5 seconds, 2 seconds, and 0.1 seconds and above, so you can see what kinds of issues you're having. Like I said, we've been running out here in the middle of Terlingua, and we've been doing conference calls, and have been performing just fine. And then the last part is just giving you the ability to set up a sleep timer, so it goes to sleep at night, turn on snow melt and those kinds of things. So some nice basic capabilities through the app itself. All right, so there's a couple of other apps I wanted to show you. One is called Starlink Watch app. So if you go to your iTunes App Store or Android and Google Starlink Watch app, you'll most likely find this. I wanted to show you just a little bit about that. What this is showing is all of the deployed Starlink satellites. And these that are all in a line haven't been fully deployed yet, so they're still getting up to altitude. And then once they get up to altitude, they'll all fall into the pattern that they're assigned to. So pretty cool to see that. We saw that over Yosemite. Pretty cool deal. I'll explain more than what I mean by that later. Here's good old America, and you can see there's something that looks like a duck there. That's actually one of the International Space Stations, so you can click on that, see a little bit of data about how high that is, and a little bit of details about the International Space Station. So let's click out of that and zoom back out. Let's go find us around Terlingua, about Big Bend National Park. So we'll zoom in down to South Texas, and you can see all the satellites that are roaming around nearby. There are a couple about near us, and you can also see a ground station. That one right in the middle there is a ground station, which the satellites are communicating with. And so that one's not too far from us, has 8 antennas. The antenna diameter is 5 feet, etc., etc. All right, so I allowed the app to see our location, and so now it's found us. So it's located where we are, and as you can see, it's got lines drawn to the satellites that we're actually connected to. So right now we're connected to those satellites, and you can see as the satellites move and some get out of range, then we'll lose some. As some come into range, we'll pick some up. You can see there's some satellites off to the left there, moving right in over on top of us, so we'll pick those up in a minute. So pretty cool way to see what's happening with your coverage in your specific area. What else do we have to show you? All right, so let's talk a little bit about some add-ons, accessories. The Starlink router does not have an Ethernet port. So if you have anything like we have a network accessible hard drives that needs an Ethernet connection to our router. So we had to buy this Ethernet adapter, and we connect that to our Starlink router, and then that enables us to connect to our hard drive, to where we have all of our videos and photos stored. If you're trying to use a different router, or you have a mesh router where you're trying to extend the range of your Starlink router, then you'll need to pick up this Ethernet adapter. The other thing we added on was a pipe adapter. This is a 2.5-inch adapter, and what we did with that is we built, with Greg Kemper's help, we built essentially a flagpole made out of 2-foot PVC pieces, 2-inch round, and extends up about 8-10 feet or so. And then I put this adapter on top of it that connects to the Starlink dish, and then I'm able to get a little bit of height on the dish to get it out above some local obstructions that may be keeping us from getting the best signals we can get. We can use the magnets from Techno RV to attach it to the rig, or we can use bungee cords and attach it to the back of our rig with where the ladder is. So it gives us a few options there to get the dish just a little bit higher. Let's get into the final takeaways. It's spendy. It's a little bit pricey. It's I'm not going to lie to you. If you're doing this, it's not going to be your cheapest alternative for getting Wi-Fi on the road. It's not going to be good as your cell phone based Wi-Fi hotspot providers, your AT&T, Nighthawks, and other similar hotspots. If you've got one of those and you've got a good plan on those are going to give you more consistent coverage. On the other hand, in situations like this where you're not going to have any cell coverage at all, regardless of the plan you're on, then it is a great alternative. It's a good backup plan. So when we get into spots where our AT&T coverage is really light, then I get this dish out and I try to find a good place with limited tree coverage and try to use it as our backup plan. The cable's 75 feet, so that's really nice. Gives you some flexibility. If you don't park too close into the trees, then you can hopefully get your dish a little further out and give you some coverage. Like I said, it's a good second or third backup plan. If you're looking for that, then do it. I highly recommend it if you don't mind spending the money. Be careful putting it on the roof. I'll tell you that story some other time. All right. Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please post those in the comments. Be glad to help you any way we can. And thanks for being part of the virtual campground. Until we see you again in person, see you in the virtual campground.